Hey, this is the Nature Boy Rick Flair, and believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence, the king of podcasts radio network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
And what a lengthy weekend we had, Memorial Day weekend, loaded to the gills with wrestling all weekend long, and we did a lot of it right here on the program, and we'll talk all about it right here on the Wrestling is Real podcast, episode number 773. Continuing along the 10-plus year legacy of the program with yours truly, King of Podcasts, with you tonight. A couple of things to bring up quickly on the program. Going on after the fact that we did post shows for on Saturday night, Night of Champions, and I also commented on Impact Wrestling's Under Siege. And then I did Sunday night, Double or Nothing for AW. So those two post shows, you can find it right here at WrestlingIsReal.com or find it on the podcast. Just the episodes right before this, 771 and 772. They're all right there for you. So I got a couple things to bring up tonight, and that is notably this bullshit about the brand split. Oh, Seth Rollins and AJ Styles were together on Raw. Okay. Yeah. You know what? Why does everyone have to feel so adamant and caring about it? I feel like it's just a subject that's just to create something for the IWC to talk about. I really feel like that's all it is. It's just a talking point. It's just something to discuss and rant about for podcasters like me to go ahead and bite into, but I don't bite into it. If I wanted to look back and see how far it's been since I talked about a brand split on the program, Jesus. Maybe I'll talk about the draft once in a while, but let me tell you, if I do, it's very rare. Let me go back and see how far back it's been since I've talked about the draft. Well, there we go. I can tell you right now. Okay, I've talked about the draft in 2020 of October. I don't know why I brought that up then, but I guess it was because I was running out of stuff to talk about. And I remember at the time I had talked about, and this was episode 565, where I said that the WWE Draft was nothing more than an off-season distraction. Because it was. Like, it didn't matter what they did with this particular episode. It didn't matter. And yeah, not a lot of people listened to that episode, by the way. I just want to make that point across too. I know that. It was nothing important. And we could talk about what were the important things about what they could do. At the time, they were talking about, well, Roman Reigns, you know, does he get to be free reign on both shows? Is he going to be on SmackDown? Like, all that. The bloodline does not need to stay on one brand. And honestly, the Judgment Day, I could care less if it's on the same brand as well. When you have things that are working, you do not need to go ahead and keep them on a separate brand. This is why when Collision comes on to the scene in 2 weeks, I want that show to be, I mean, you can have feature stars that are more or less exclusive to the Collision brand, sure. And then you can always just have certain storylines that go across that, you know, you don't have to go ahead and you have those two shows definitely split apart. Let them be somewhat different. That's okay. Because there should be certain feuds, some programs that should definitely be kind of concentrated to particular programs. Since you're not going to go and run into the same series, it's not a bad idea in the brand split sense to be able to go and have storylines or stories that you've been following along with on a regular basis on a particular night, then do that. Right? When you want to watch a show and you want to watch it because you've been watching it on a regular basis, like when we used to watch appointment viewing, or when you have a show that you want to go and catch, you know there's a story you want to watch on that show. Like we all have cop shows we've watched, right? We all have dramas. We all have, you know, reality shows we watch. So there's particular reality shows you watch for a particular story, a particular drama, a particular action adventure, a particular cop show, a particular whatever. Investigator, spy thriller, whatever. Okay, if there's TV shows that we watch and we stream, we watch them for particular storylines. And we don't worry about watching them over multiple shows. Okay, that's the kind of the Netflix, Amazon, Paramount Plus, Apple TV kind of mentality. That's the new thinking of watching television, right? Same thing here. So say if you're watching Raw or SmackDown, and don't worry about the fact it's on Mondays or Fridays, or Collision and Dynamite being on Wednesdays and Saturdays. What I'm trying to explain is this. There are storylines that should be dedicated to a particular program, not to a particular night. It doesn't make a difference. Whether you're watching it as it happens or you're watching it on demand. You just know there's particular stories you follow along with, and that's it. So the main Roman Reigns stuff happens over on SmackDown, for the most part. But something's happening on Raw, especially when something happens after. But for the most part, the bulk of the bloodline stuff that Roman Reigns is attached to happens on SmackDown. And then on Raw, you got the Uso stuff, and then sometimes you get some other things where Roman Reigns will appear on the other show, which is fine. Because Roman Reigns doesn't need to be attached to one show or the other. And the whole idea of the World Heavyweight title, and everybody's saying, well, Raw needs to have a title, a main event title to defend on that program. Got it. So they set something up with AJ Styles after Seth Rollins comes out to celebrate the fact that he won the World Heavyweight title over AJ Styles on a title that was actually put out where everybody complained the first part about, oh, well, why are SmackDown people going after the World Heavyweight title? Why not? They needed the extra bodies in there to be in this. They haven't done anything right now since the brand split about the SmackDown or Raw Women's Champions. Like, what does that matter? I almost wish they would put, like, the Fox champion and the USA champion, but they wouldn't do that. The women's titles being on separate brands, okay. But they're not necessarily worrying about, they're not doing that bullshit they did a couple of years ago where Charlotte and Becky swapped belts. Remember that? Debacle, that disaster? They're not doing that. At the moment, Asuka is Raw Women's Champion, right? And Rhea Ripley's a SmackDown Women's Champion. So they're just kind of working out as they are. Okay. And if I read, Bianca went over to SmackDown, so it doesn't make a difference. The belt didn't go along with her. So that kind of worked itself out. But they didn't do the thing where the brand split was so important that we had to go and do the swapping of the belts, which was a horrible idea. And then we come here. Well, this World Heavyweight title. Oh, a SmackDown star over on Raw. So what? Why is everyone such a huff about this? I'm sorry, my fellow wrestling podcasters. I actually have comments from one of the videos I did that was the post-show for Night of Champions. I'm going to read them tonight. Because let me tell you this. None of them care about the brand split. Let me just put some of the points, and I want to go ahead and comment about what they're talking about. So Currington writes up, as a comment on the YouTube video, which was the YouTube broadcast of the Night of Champions post show that I did on Saturday. Quote, would it be too much of the same if Street Profits and Bianca teamed up and turned heel in a kind of a Judgment Day group? Bianca actually helps Street Profits regain their dominance. They or Montez can in turn help her cheat to win when necessary. They both get a character change in new direction. You could have done that maybe at the beginning, but the idea from the get-go was to make Street Profits and Bianca Belair faces. And at this point, they're not going to turn them heel. It's not going to happen. And nobody was really buying to the fact of that. I mean, the possible tease that Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins were going to split, that was one thing. But at this moment, they have nothing really important to do with them. Street Profits are the new Crime Time. Street Profits are the new, more important version of the New Day. They're good for house shows. They're good for audiences. And, they're not stinking up the joint. Street Profits, they've already won the tag team titles, right? And it doesn't matter if they do or not. They're just kind of out there. And there isn't anybody really out there for them to go and take on because at the moment, they're not going to go after Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. unless they turn heel, they're not. And the World Tag Team titles don't make much of a difference right now anyway. The Street Profits are not going to take those belts off of them. For Bianca, she moves over to SmackDown. We could have her feud against Rhea Ripley. After a very lengthy run as Raw Women's Champion, now, does she get the rematch against Asuka? I guess she could do that. But after that, Bianca goes to SmackDown. Let her go after Rhea Ripley. Let's go ahead and have that happen. Let's get that program going, because that's what I want to watch. And if you want to attach the Street Profits as part of this to go after Judgment Day, that's not a bad idea. Because after Judgment Day right now finishes what they did with Seth Rollins and AJ Styles, yeah, Judgment Day could be doing things over on the other brand. I mean, they could, but Street Profits is over on SmackDown, so it doesn't make a difference anyway. They would just have to wait until somebody else becomes World Tag Team Champions, but that's not happening right now. Doesn't make a difference. It's a nice thought, Currington, but they could have done it before, but at the moment, there's just too much time invested into the fact they're all faces to make a change to them, even though that would be something that would absolutely give some new life to all these characters. I mean, you could make a story where Bianca is very upset after what happened to her and all that time, and the Street Profits turning, but I don't see it happening. Feels like it's pretty clear Street Profits and Bianca Belair are meant to be faces. They do so much stuff for the charity stuff and everything like that. They're just good people. They're just not going to be. It's not an easy sell for the crowd to go ahead and cheer to boo them anyway right now, especially to make that change. Not much you can do about that. Cujo writes in and says that Gunther is going to beat Seth Rollins soon. Well, are we going to get Gunther and Seth Rollins? Would that be something they're going to do down the line? But they wouldn't do it until Gunther drops the IC belt. At the moment, Gunther holding onto the IC belt is only good for him right now to benefit from him. And I believe he does need the belt to keep prominent. And really, he doesn't take that many matches because his cohorts in Imperium are always involved in other storylines anyway. And that's what they're doing. There's just not much there. It's just kind of boring. Like, really what the problem is that Street Profits, Brawling Brutes, Imperium, some of these factions that are involved in the middle of the mid-card, that doesn't really matter towards the long run of what's happening on the product. That's the thing I think everybody really needs to go and take a point of and realize that's where we are right now. It's just kind of boring. So you could do some of that, but like, look, for Monday Night Raw, I know there's usually about 3 times I need to check in for the most part. Start of the night, you go off and say, okay, Seth, and is confronted by AJ Styles, and on Judgment Day, they set up the match for later in the night. Got it. Ricochet wins Money in the Bank qualifying match over The Miz. Not a match I'd really cared about. And Ricochet is not a person that I think is going to get the briefcase, but, he's going to be good for the match because it's a ladder match. Into Sheer, making quick work of some jobbers. And then Imperium against Alpha Academy, a storyline I just don't care about. You can kind of just tell which stories are just like, And Raquel picking Shotzi to go ahead and defend the World Tag Team title or be part of that Fatal 4-Way for the World Tag Team titles, the Women's World Tag Team titles. Okay. Well. And so Ronda Rousey, Shayna Baszler now are the Women's Tag Team Champions. Good. That's the place where they should be. We should giving them something to do. Because they're really not doing much right now. And Ronda Rousey has not been the kind of star that she was before. She's kind of just dropped off. But now they have these belts, and now they can just be very much, they can be doing something more with them, where they're not necessarily with the tag team titles that are important for them. It's just they're holding on to some props, so they have a purpose to be on there a lot, and they could just have some other feuds. How are you going to make me care about Monday Night Raw when you have matches like JD McDonough and Dolph Ziggler? I mean, tell me. Like, am I going to care? And by the way, the match was a count out. JD McDonough is not a guy that's going to get over. I'm sorry. He's too small for this division. NXT, okay, fine, but you're going to go ahead and look at the real spotlight now that's going to be put on this guy. He's a good wrestler, but he's small. And how many small guys in WWE really do stand out? They just don't. So then I didn't watch any of this, but you know what I did catch? Cody Rhodes commenting about Brock Lesnar. So he wants another fight. Okay, we're going to continue that storyline. Great. And now another qualifying match, Shinsuke Nakamura, Bronson Reed. Shinsuke wins. Okay, whatever. But I'm not missing anything on those matches by seeing the qualifiers. And then Seth and AJ winning over Damian Priest and Finn Balor. Okay, done. And who cares if the brand split's here and what it does? It doesn't make a difference. But you know what? There's just so much filler on these 3-hour shows that matters. And this is why I hope that one of these shows, that the Raw show will drop to 2 hours and they don't go 3 hours on SmackDown. If Endeavor could do anything, can we please do something where if you're going to have a 3-hour show, then please do something with that third hour, something else. Because WWE would really benefit if they just had 2-hour shows, period. So much time to fill. And I mean, really, the mid-card, it's fine, but am I going to get anything that's going to matter towards pay-per-views? No. There's a lot of TV stuff that just doesn't matter, and I'm not really directly invested in. Alpha Academy? No. JD McDonough? No. Johnny Gargano, the way, Indy Hartwell, Candice LeRae, or Dexter Lumis? No. LWO? No. LWO is a WCW thing. But you want to bring it here? Fine. And this is why I always say, well, listen, if I'm going to watch anything of all, SmackDown's the better show for me to watch because I can actually get through, and it's much more pliable. You look at that. What was it? I remember skipping Austin Theory and Sheamus. I didn't watch this match. Because either which way, I knew they were going to have it, but you know what? I know Austin Theory was going to lose. But then we get to the Bloodline, because I remember I missed the Austin Theory match. And then I remember the Bloodline came out. Actually, no, I didn't watch any of this, because I remember it was a taped show, so I didn't ever bother. And then they set things up with Raquel and Shotzi against Damage Control, whatever. There were just things that happened here, right? And what is it with Baron Corbin now working, not just dealing with the stuff with Cameron Grimes? Oh, by the way, you want me to care at all? Ashanti the Adonis against Cameron Grimes. Ugh. Hit Row is still around. And talk about a non-factor altogether. Cameron Grimes, I can't shake over the fact, listen, if you were going to bring him up, you should have done it sooner. They pulled the trigger late on him. After the whole deal with him and the deal when he was getting through the whole stock market thing, right? When Wall Street Bets and all that stuff was going on. And the $1 million title was around. And him and LA Knight, you know what? If you wanted to give me something, then come back to that. Like, you could have just started with LA Knight and Cameron Grimes if you want to. I don't know. But Cameron Grimes, you waited so late for this guy, and then you just like buried him down the list where he wasn't that important a person coming out of NXT now. It's just too late. Too late for the debut for him. And to set that match up, like, ugh, whatever. And like LA Knight and Rick Boogs, and LA Knight working in this mid-card feud for what is a waste for him. Just saying. And then we get AJ Styles and Karrion Kross. Ugh. And Karrion Kross, getting to work with AJ Styles is great, but like I said, Karrion Kross doesn't matter. I mean, AJ wins, and Karrion Kross is just out there, and he means nothing. The NXT people are all these NXT call-ups, nothing. Nothing about them really matters. And then the one thing I remember I watched clips of was the KO show, and they had Roman and Solo. And that was good. You know. And then when Jay and Jimmy come out to attack after Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were going after Solo and Roman, the setup was done so that the Usos had the tag team belts in their hands, but then gave the belts to Roman and Solo to set things up. Like I said, the stuff they're doing on TV and the stuff that's on the pay-per-views, night and day difference. When you look at what the Bloodline did and that whole setup with the Usos, like, what did I get from the pay-per-view that's going to make me really care about what happened at Night of Champions going forward? Give me that answer. Because when I think about it right now, I'm going to ask myself, okay, if I go back and look at what they did on the show on Saturday, of the Raw feuds, Gunther wins in quick fashion for the IC title. Asuka and Bianca's moved over to SmackDown, right? And then Brock and Cody, which that's been continuing on, going on over to that Raw brand, which is an important thing to watch on that show. And Kevin and Sami, who can be on wherever. But nothing came out of Raw that made you really want to watch Raw coming out of Night of Champions. It's not until SmackDown. Because we have to see what the Usos are going to say to speak up for what they did and how Roman's going to come back after them. Because now that's a whole split. Like, we have to answer that shit. So SmackDown's going to be a big deal coming up Friday. That I care about. The Bloodline is the deal. It's the storyline to watch. It's the best thing they got. And so when they get a little bit of that, that's great. Otherwise, if they don't have it, what are they going to do? I mean, Raw had its real deal. Okay, Seth Rollins and AJ Styles. Yes, you started off with that with Raw. Perfect. Cody and Brock. Perfect. But you need more. And WWE is not capable of really giving anything that's really interesting or important, because you know what? They are suffering from the fact that what Vince McMahon did with some of these characters on the build-up to some of these characters doesn't matter anymore. Okay? You moved Otis a couple of different times. He was real popular with Mandy Rose, and that was a whole thing with, you know, him and Tucker. You got rid of that. And then you make Otis go through another change. And him and Chad Gable doesn't really matter. And then you attach, you know, the part of the storyline with the Maximum Male Models, which was a thrown out storyline because LA Knight didn't want to do anything with it. Okay. Like, I'm trying to think here. Give me some reasons why I should be absolutely, like, invested in what's going on. Because I'm not. I'm not. There's just nothing there. This sucks. The mid-card is with a lot of trash. Like NXT, you can tell they're not going to put any real time or effort into Johnny Gargano because nobody cares. Cameron Grimes, because nobody cares. Dexter Lumis, they tried it with The Miz. It didn't work. People panned it. And what do you got now? Like, okay, after WrestleMania, you got other stars that have come out of the woodwork, but you know what? There's better stars now. Like, we got some storylines that are much better. Judgment Day being out there, that's a plus. That's a plus. They got a number of things on Raw, but they're limited on what is interesting on that show. Cody, Brock, anything Judgment Day, anything Kevin and Sami, anything Bloodline. Prove me wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm mistaken on what I'm saying here. Oh, by the way, Nosage, who also wrote in the comments, says, I think at some point Solo Sikoa is going to challenge Roman. You know, we could get there someday, but I think Solo is going to be attached somehow to this whole Bloodline thing, I think, for a while, unless Roman goes away for Hollywood. But Solo now, that's another guy who, at some point, if you decide to split him off and go solo, and just give him just a run as a singles champion, I mean, people are going to be all into it. Solo Sikoa is over big time because of this. He's not stood out enough yet, but he has stayed. They have kept him very strong and very good. Cody, they kept very good so far. Sammy and Kevin are super over, attached to the bloodline. And right now, like I said, there's a number of things to watch on Raw, but anything else in that middle part, it looks meager in comparison to what they have. When the main event storylines are in, they're in big. But the rest of them, no. And that's where AEW has some of the parity that comes off a little bit better for them, because you still have stars that have been built pretty strong. Their records are good. The matches they have, there's a lot of parity within there. And there's a lot of intricate storylines they do put in through a lot of different parts of the show. And I think that's just going to continue as such when Collision starts up, which is not a bad idea. I like it. They've been doing right things with it so far. I want to take a story that came up that talks about the whole deal of this brand split, because I think there's a couple of people that actually talk about the fact of this, but I've just put some stories in there just to make the point. I'm only going to take for two stories. And then I put one story about the clear brand split in the WWE Draft, which was done back a month ago. That people thought, okay, it's the ongoing thought process. Actually, I should bring that up first. The ongoing thought among the IWC, and this particular story that I'm taking from dailyddt.com, making the point of it. You know, they're just doing the same barking up that everybody else has to say about the brand split. Keep the brands separate and build new stars on each show. But see, this is on fan-sided. Right, this is dailyddt.com, and let me tell you, WWE really struggles building stars and building new stars. They're horrible with their NXT talent. They're awful. Okay? Unless they're attached to somebody important, which is what they need to be doing more of, not standing alone. I mean, sorry, Sophia Cromwell aligning with, Alpha Academy. No. MVP along with Omos? Yeah, definitely. Paul Heyman attached to anybody? Definitely. Paul Heyman attached to Roman Reigns, which is attached to Solo Sikoa and the Usos? Yes. And anyone that has been attached to that storyline for the most part, except for Matt Riddle, they've all benefited. They've all benefited. Matt Riddle benefited from Randy Orton. Absolutely. Absolutely benefited from Randy Orton. That's why he's a pretty good star, pretty good sized star now. Plus his UFC background. Look at Cody. Well, it speaks for itself. Because remember, he also put in 10 plus years, or 12 plus years, whatever it was, in WWE before he got to when the AEW made a name for himself and came back. One of those few exceptions of those coming back to another company and doing what he did. Drew McIntyre coming from another company, doing better than what he did. Bobby Lashley coming from another company and coming back to do better than what he did. Right? It took a long time for Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn to get reignited. But that's just because Triple H finally decided, let's just get him back to the kind of people that people want. The NXT type characters. Like the more like the Ring of Honor personas. Let's just be honest. That's why they're over. And their attachment to the Bloodline storyline, because it was just so damn good. You attach Sami Zayn for 9 months of the Bloodline, he's over. And Kevin Owens, you made him the prize fighter again. You went back to the character he was best known for, the Kevin Steen character. A WWE version of it, but it's the Kevin Steen character. And he was over. And he's over again. So those are the things they could do, they could get right. With Judgment Day, Edge was attached to them. And they brought it up. And they just hit a couple things that just really hit money. All right. Rhea being attached to Judgment Day was genius. They did need a female in that faction. It works better than I ever thought before. And now I feel awful about all the things I said about Rhea Ripley when she was a single star in NXT and leading up to the main roster. Her work at Judgment Day has been supreme. I like her now a lot. I did not feel the same before. She is really good now. And her and Dominic Mysterio is just a winning couple right there. Because Dominic and the storyline they said with him and Ray, fantastic. And the Judgment Day adding him was the ultimate sell on making the Judgment Day completely intact. Just amazing. They have, listen, Dom and Rhea have elevated Damian Priest and Finn Balor. Let me just say it like that. It is what it is. I thought Finn Balor would have been an anchor, but he's not. Because I think Damian Priest and Finn Balor, no, they're not the stars of this attraction. It's Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio. Absolutely. And Dominic Mysterio basically has Vicky Guerrero heat now. And they are wonderful together. The vignettes they did of Rhea and Dom going to dinner or going to Christmas or going to whatever, okay, at the Mysterio's house. Love it. So wonderful. The whole deal of Dominic Mysterio going one day in jail or spending a night in jail and coming out of the criminal Zavato. Fantastic. I love it all. Everything Bloodline, just about everything Judgment Day, solid. But there's only so much time in 3 hours they could fill. So the rest that they have is not going to get that kind of attention. And Alpha Academy and Street Profits and Viking Raiders and most of the women's stuff these days, that's not Bianca Belair or Rhea Ripley. Nah, no. Ronda and Shayna, yeah, that's going to help. Don't seem enough anyway. But, you know, they're here now. And Ronda and Shayna need to be more on pay-per-views. I don't know why they're not. So that's where they got to figure these things out. And honestly, you know, I don't mind what they're doing right now with where things are in the current sets of the lineup. Like, for me to be complaining about, okay, the mid-card feuds kind of suck, that's not bad. Because the truth is, the main event storylines, they have about 4, 5, or 6 different storylines or factions or something they're doing right now that are absolutely great, and I want to watch them every week. That's about as good as what you're going to get from WWE right now. And let's be honest, okay? I mean, let's be honest. Back in the Attitude Era, all right? And I was back there into that. I'm going to just tell it to you like this. Anything with Stone Cold or Rock or Taker and everything attached to it. That's it. Then Degeneration X, sure. But when we had the mid-card shit, that didn't really matter either. Anything was Test and Albert. Anything that was, you know, Steve Blackman or Goldust. I'm just saying it was. If I'm trying to think back, okay, anything that was not the Dudleys, not Edge and Christian, not the Hardys. There was a lot of segments they had of a lot of different things, right? When I think about Shelton Benjamin, no, not really. When I think about Bo Buchanan, I think about, you know, there was a great colleague. Like, I mean, it was just a lot of different things I think about that just didn't matter among the normal set of things on a regular WWE roster. And at any given time, there were always different mid-card shows, mid-card parts that I didn't care about. They just weren't interesting to me. Because they're not. And that's okay. The brand split is not going to make a difference for any of them. It's not going to make a difference in the mid-card. I'm sorry. Just because you're going to put somebody else on the somebody that's mid-card on a different brand, it's going to make a difference? No. Now, they're underutilizing certain talent, yes. Karrion Kross, they've watered down his character a lot, and even bringing Scarlett up doesn't make much of a difference. Karrion Kross had a much better character, and they can't let him be so diabolical and psychopathic and sociopathic or whatever it is before. They can't let him be that, I guess, because Dexter Lumis is that guy. So Karrion Kross can't be, because they're only going to have one crazy person. And the other crazy person is Nikki Cross on the women's side. They can't do anything else. And then you got all these other NXT stars with no character, nothing to them at all. Okay? Johnny Gargano is milquetoast. Candice LeRae, not milquetoast, basic. A lot of NXT stars are very basic. And this is what I want you to understand as well. Okay, for all of you that are all saying, oh, look at all these stars we brought up from NXT. JD McDonough, Cameron Grimes, all right, Hit Row. Now, Hit Row is Swerve Strickland, different story, but no, different. Because Hit Row was nothing unless it had Swerve. Isaiah Swerve Scott, right? But let's go everybody else. Basic. Elliot Knight doesn't have to be basic. He's actually got more to him. But they're using him badly. And this is because of the constant thing that Sean Rourke always has to get buried. Okay, this is why I never wanted him in WWE in the first place. Because, yeah, okay, Triple H might have done something with him, LA Knight. And you know what? They got him here, and he does get over. But he's a mid-card. He's not going after belts. He's not going after nothing. Okay, let's think about the other NXT stars. I'm trying to think right now. Nothing with The Way. Nothing with Indus Sher. Basic. All of them basic. But they're going to have to figure out something. What they're doing with NXT now? They got a lot of basic stars over there too. Grayson Waller. Basic. He is. He's got an accent. And he's got a quirkiness to him. But you know what? He's no different than what a Miz is. Grayson Waller is basic. I hate to break it to you, but that's what I think he is. He's basic. Meanwhile, if you look at NXT, they got a couple of basic stars over there too. Carmelo Hayes is basic. He is basic. Let me tell you something. The character Carmelo Hayes plays right now, somebody else is doing that character better. Okay? You know who's doing a better job than him? The MLW, the guy that just won Battle Royale at MLW, the former national openweight champion, who's going to be going after Alexander Hammerstone at Never Say Never next month. Alex Kane. Yeah, Alex Kane. I'll take him over Cameron Hayes. Carmelo Hayes. Oh, look at that. I don't think I can get the name right. Carmelo Hayes. Yeah, I'll take Alex Kane over him. Hands down. And I'm trying to think of who else there is among that mid card that really stands out on the NXT side. Braun Breaker? Well, he's got pedigree. He's got Scott Steiner pedigree. Or Rick Steiner pedigree. Steiner pedigree, period. But he's been made basic too. How do you make that guy basic? Braun Breaker is one-dimensional. Who else do I have on this roster that I haven't talked about yet? Let me figure who else is there among the stars that I haven't talked about on the NXT side that also I've not been watching the show. I'm just saying I'm not watching because I'm just not interested. It just doesn't matter to me. But I'll take a little bit of what they did with NXT. Let me go through the results. Okay. Gigi Dolan, well, she's got a great pedigree for the independents. Has got a different look. I think you can do a lot more with her. And honestly, I think the Toxic Attraction, it's unfortunate that got broken up. Because ever since Mandy Rose was let go, what are you going to do now? Like, there's nothing you can do really much of all when it comes into JC Jane, who's kind of lost in here. Like, they're just having a feud with each other because there's nothing else they could do. Toxic Attraction getting split up was bad because the split up should have been with Mandy Rose involved. This right here, and Gigi Dolan got the more of the push from it anyway. I think Gigi Dolan, if you give it a chance, could do something. Oh, but let me talk about Pretty Deadly. So they're flamboyant. And What else is there to watch about Pretty Deadly? Oh, they're kind of quirky. Are we going to take them seriously? Are we going to watch them on pay-per-view going for the tag team titles? Are we going to actually care? Are they going to be important? Are they going to matter? No. They're mid-card. And these are the folks that we had in the Performance Center for a long time. And this, again, these UK stars they brought in that didn't do much. Ilya Dragunov, JD McDonough. You know, you got others down there that it's like, whatever, man. Okay. Wes Lee, basic on NXT. With the Radicals, they did the whole deal with the 70s show, whatever. Him and Wentz and Trey. I mean, Trey Miguel's been kind of lost without the Radicals. I thought the Radicals was a great group together. They did a good job with them in Impact Wrestling. They really did. I don't know what this is. Tony D'Angelo. He's one-dimensional. Tony D'Angelo is just, it's a gimmick that was, 15 years old? I mean, they could have done Sopranos gimmick back in the 2000s when Sopranos was still on. We haven't had a gangster movie in years. Why are we doing this here? This was somebody's idea that thought, oh, this is a good idea. Let's put Tony D'Angelo. Let's make him he's an Italian guy. We'll make him a mafia. And the stuff they did with Legado del Fantasma, boring. I didn't like it. I thought it was bad. I mean, they did make something out of it. Okay. Noam Dar, basic. Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams, basic. And then what else? Lash Legend. I feel like she should be carrying Bianca Belair's bags. And I feel bad because I think there's something you could do with her, a different character. But the Lash Legend right here, as it is, you could do something more with her. She could be something in a better gimmick, but not this right here. It's not working. Cora Jade is a copycat AJ Lee. Tell me I'm wrong. But for her to be a copycat AJ Lee, fine. You could have brought her up already. Why did you need to keep her down there? And why do you need to keep Roxanne Perez down there? Roxanne Perez is a super baby face. She would get over on the main roster, and she will be great in the likes of, I mean, let me tell you this. Give me Asuka and Roxanne Perez for the Raw Women's title. Like, you don't have to necessarily get her right up to that point, but you know what? I would take her over Shotzi. I would take her over a number of other stars. But I think that's... And there's some spots on that main roster we had before. Like, Aaliyah was up there. We could drop her for Roxanne. Hands down. And, you know, now we got Reggie, who used to be up on the main roster, and he was the whole thing before. And it's unfortunate he's not up there, not on the main roster now. They wanted to go ahead and change his look. Or change his gimmick to scripts. This is a mistake. Reggie was so over before. He was over before. Hold it with him and Nia Jax and Shayna. I was like, it just worked. It was just something better with Reggie over there. I don't know why they changed the character in the first place. Oh, no, sorry. He was with Carmella. I thought that actually was working. But I don't know. You know, it sucks. All of it. Oh, well. It is what it is. That's the mid-card for you. So don't expect anything in the mid-card. Don't expect anything in the brand split to really culminate into anything. Because it's not. It's not. Couple comments. Like I said, that's what I told you about when they said about the brand split and what it should be doing. Right? Let's get into the other story that I was going to bring up. Eric Bischoff bringing the points about what the brand split really does that fans don't notice. Okay. Eric Bischoff made some points. I'll give him this. He said this a couple weeks ago. He says it differentiates the two products in the eyes of broadcasting companies and can produce a bidding war between companies over which brand they would like to put on their channel. And that when it came to promotions and things that the broadcasters want to do leading up to the brand split, you know, he says, I don't think there's a value in the brand split. I think it's a necessity. I guess the value, you could argue that the value is you have two distinct brands. You have two distinct television licensing opportunities. As in any TV show, wrestling is no different. The quality of the show is oftentimes linked directly to the star power on it. And those two successful brands, when you have two major media companies vying for the rights, bidding for the rights for those brands, the value has to be there. Now, this is where Eric Bischoff is right. So there's a brand split, but to have it so specifically separate doesn't make a difference. Like they said, Roman Reigns being on Fox, yeah. Bloodline storyline, absolutely. Having the appeal of Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes and Brock Lesnar and the Judgment Day over on Raw, absolutely. But I'm pretty sure some people don't even take that into account, but that's true. And then you have certain stars that can also go from brand to brand because of the belts. Fine. No big deal about that. Now, the other story that came up about this is from Cage Side Seats, that the brand split's dead and the writer doesn't care. I don't either. Sean Reuter. While it's still jarring for some of the audience to see WWE disregard the draft so quickly, in years past, I would have been with them, but I just can't bring myself to care anymore. And he says, why would I rather they take the concept seriously or just do away with it altogether? There's still potential to draft and brands with dedicated rosters, but WWE either doesn't agree or doesn't agree enough to do the work of creating their shows that way. And they're not going to ditch the draft altogether because it is a ratings and attention boost every time they run one. Has WWE broken me, he says. Maybe, but as with performers whose work I don't enjoy but others do, and types of storylines that instantly generate debate among fans, I've realized the narrative inconsistencies don't really impact my enjoyment of the stuff I do like. If dissecting and debating the kayfabe rules and lamenting the WWE's inability to stick to them to make you happy, go for it. I used to get a kick out of it myself as long as you're not used to upset. You're upset to impinge on anyone else's enjoyment. I could pretty easily avoid those conversations. He's right about that. But I think Eric Bischoff says the one thing. The brand split does have purpose. And there is value from the broadcaster sense. And that is something that Eric Bischoff is making a good point of, that Tony Khan needs to also make a point of, because, well, not so much because, I mean, for Fox and NBC Universal, it is a different story. Now, if Fox has dropped off altogether in the broadcast negotiations, as they've already said, and NBC Universal now is the sole broadcaster that might take up both programs, then we'll see what it does, because it could be a different story altogether. Now, what it looks like to me is the fact that AEW, being on TBS or TNT, doesn't make a difference. They don't necessarily have to have a brand split, but they should consider who they have on their respective shows in terms of storylines on Wednesdays and Saturday nights, because I think they should kind of book for two styles of audiences. Because I believe the Wednesday night audience might be a little bit of the younger set audience, which is why the younger pillars and all these younger stars working with the older talent, the veteran talent, works. Meanwhile, you do something different with Collision, where it is veteran on veteran talent, and you just make them, take the star power that they have and amplify it once again on Collision. I think Saturday night might be a different crowd altogether than what they would get for Dynamite. I honestly believe that's what's going to happen. I think Saturday night's just going to be a different crowd, but we're going to find out. And they'll figure out what's going to work for them. But the fact that CM Punk is coming back to be a part of this tells me a lot. I don't know who he's going to go ahead and be on first, but you know what? Let's put it like this. Collision. I would not be surprised if MJF, the World Heavyweight Champion now, or Orange Cassidy, the International Champion, or the TNT Champion Wardlow are going to necessarily be on Collision. I don't know. Maybe they're just going to be dedicated more to Dynamite. The Trios Champions, the House of Black, or the World Tag Team Champions, FTR, or the TBS Champion, Chris Statlander. I don't know. But what I'm thinking about is this. That maybe some certain stars will go over on the other brand. Because, okay, the TBS champion is already working over here with Chris Statlander. And then the TNT champion, I don't think it makes a difference on the fact that those championships are on certain particular brands. But I think they could split up where certain champions will be involved. Where the TBS and TNT champions will be working more on Collision or Dynamite, one or the other. Because I can see that where Collision would be more of like, okay, World Tag Team titles. You could put on either show. The International Champion to Dynamite. The TNT or TBS championships on Collision. The women's world title on Dynamite. Or you could put it on Collision and keep the TBS and TNT titles over on Dynamite. And then you would feature, like I said, your tag champs. If you want to put the world title over there on both shows, and you want to do something where that's the kind of things you do, and the Trios Championships can also be put over on either brand. Like, I think you could do something like that. If the Ring of Honor titles want to be defended on television on AEW TV, maybe they go on Collision. But then also think about like which stars are going to are going to be more exclusively seen over there. Well, you can go a couple different ways. The fact that we saw the Lucha Brothers more now than we have, and Bandito and Rush, La Faction Ingobernable, right? The Firm. You have the Hardys. You got like a lot of veteran talent, a boatload of veteran talent that you could be doing a lot with. The Embassy got a boatload of talent right there. Like, there's a number of stars you could be featuring over on the other side. And also, the ones that you're also going to be featuring for the most part on Rampage, that you've been featuring on Rampage for a while. You also got that, too. So, they could change things up, and we could see more of what's going on there more than anything else. And that's okay with me, too, if you decide to go that route. So maybe they do more where the Rampage goes more on there, and then it's like, okay, the Rampage stuff will go over on the Saturday nights. Because right now, what's not being shown on Dynamite, they've been fixing with, Acclaim have been normally on Dynamite. The Guns, we have not seen much of. The Firm, we have not seen much of. But they've been over on Rampage. Nyla Rose, we have not seen much of, but she's been over on Rampage. Lee Moriarty, we haven't seen much of him, but he's over on that side. And there's more that they got. It just depends on what they want to do. So, they got more than enough talent to work with. And that they can split up as they want. So we'll keep it all looking together and see what happens. Like, Hook also always exclusive to one brand. There's no one that has been a Rampage person with some appearances over on Dynamite. But they'll figure that out. They don't need to go through the brand split. And as for CM Punk coming back, I think you'll have to probably do a brand split where maybe the Elite work only on Dynamite, and then CM Punk will work with whoever else he wants to work with over on Collision. And maybe that's where CM Punk will be at in general, is Collision. And that's fine. I don't know, it's something. But all in all, I'm happy with what's been going on with wrestling, man. I'm glad that MLW is back on YouTube again. I'm watching their show again. I got to watch their show tonight. Alex Kane has gotten over pretty much as a really popular talent. He could very well beat Hammerstone for the title coming up at MLW's Never Say Never, which I got to talk about that a little bit, huh? We haven't really gotten to that yet, but it's coming up, and that's a pay-per-view I will be watching, and I'm looking forward to it. Now, excuse me, it's Saturday, July 8th. I said it was June, but it's actually Saturday, July 8th. So far, we have 3 matches that are already announced. World Heavyweight title will have Alexander Hammerstone versus Alex Kane. Gene Snitsky is back. He actually was featured at Battle Riot. where Alex Kane won the title opportunity against Alexander Hammerstone. And Ichiban versus TJ Crawford is also announced so far. A couple things I got to bring up when it comes to Impact Wrestling. They actually have their show coming up. Impact Wrestling is going to be doing Against All Odds. And they're already setting up matches for that, which is an interesting setup, as a matter of fact. They already have some matches already planned. 5, as a matter of fact. So ABC, Ace Austin, Chris Bay will take on the Good Hands, Jason Hotch, and John Schuyler, accompanied by Brian Myers, to go after the Impact World Tag Team titles. A dog collar match with Killer Kelly against Masha Slimovic, which they showed a little bit of that ruckus going on in the stands during Under Siege this weekend. Trey Miguel against Chris Sabin for the X Division title. Steve Macklin will take on Alex Shelley, who won at number 1 contenders match at Under Siege to go against Steve Macklin for the world title, who's now accompanied with Bully Ray. Now, we have a match coming up called the 8-4-1 match. Interesting match altogether. It's to determine the number 1 contender to the Impact World title. Bully Ray, Jonathan Gresham, Heath, and Nick Aldis will be one team. Speedball Mike Bailey, Moose, PCO, and Rich Swann are the other team. This is what the match is working like. It starts as an 8-man tag team match. The winning team of the 8-man tag team match will then go on and face each other in a fatal 4-way. And the winner of that fatal 4-way match will receive the title shot. So yeah, they're setting that up for Against All Odds, which is, by the way, coming up June 9th. So it's next week. Pretty quick turnaround, but there's what they're planning to do. So I'm wondering what they're going to do with the TV this weekend to set that up. Like, you're going to already have to create the volatility between all these teams. These two teams have set it up. But it's interesting. Okay. And that's what they have planned going on for that. All right. Well, that's the show tonight. Thank you for listening in, finding the shows you always do. WrestlingIsReal.com was the website. And, of course, this is a broadcast on the King of Podcasts Radio Network. Please, a quick reminder that if you haven't done so, please go ahead and do me a big favor. Rate and review the show, Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can also find the show on Google Podcasts and Amazon Music. And keep in mind, on social media, I'm also there too. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, at King of Podcasts. And also catch my shows every week, which is The Parade of the Debaucherous, which is available on Tuesday nights, ddradio.live, or wherever you find podcasts. Of course, the Broadcasters Podcast, which I will be recording tomorrow. And you can find that at broadcasterspodcast.com, and all my programming and all my production stuff that I do. KingofPodcasts.com. Come back for another Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.